Hey guys, DibtheAwesome here to give you yet another Monster Legends guide where we talk about monsters' moves, rune sets, partners, all that jazz. As requested by Armor Gaming himself when I commented on his update video for Fatid, he asked, hey, you should do a guide on him. And I'm like, hey, that sounds interesting to do right now. So this is literally after like watching the update, because he actually did get an update. This is the upcoming race monster. I'm actually really happy about this because I thought he would be like a premier monster. No, he's actually the grand prize for the upcoming race, and we're gonna talk about why he is awesome and cool. Uh, there's various reasons. One, because of a really cool new concept they put on him. They had intended him to have like possession skills. They've removed those. He is now a tank that revives. So he's basically nature's categories Undertaker. And we'll get to that in a bit here. An amazing monster. Let's just talk about it. You guys don't want me just to say, oh, it's great book and all da 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 da. You guys want to hear stat specific reasons, all that jazz. So power 3,432. Not a great power, not gonna lie. Does not matter though. He cares not for solid damage. All of his damage is percentage based or spontaneous death. He does not care, for he is really cool. That's the pros when you're a really cool guy. You don't care about numbers. You do percentage damage. You don't care about solid damage. You just care about damage over time, man. I don't care about I don't need no double damage. I will take you down by just over time. That's kind of how Fatid works. So the power is irrelevant. He'll kill you with either DOT or just spontaneously eat you. That's how he kind of does things. Life 45,239. I do believe this is the tankiest monster in the game now. I think that I remember that being in the update video Armor was talking about. I think that's true. I don't think Igris has had that high of a life. Maybe I do believe this is the new tankiest tank life, and that's pretty huge. I think that's astronomically huge, especially when we're getting this guy at +4. And like other team race monsters, this monster is going to be in the Grand Prix. It's a fancy race, grand race. We'll just say grand race because like apparently I can't say Prinks right, or on stream I said like Pricks or something. But this is just like grand. We'll just say grand race because I can't say that thing right. But so for the grand race, if you do manage to get 50 laps in, you'll get him at rank 4, and his stats are rank 4. He's got a lot of life, 65,039 life. What's his life at 30? 176. I think that's the same, around the same base life as the Gearsis, but yeah, you get him at 120. And look at those stats. Those are beautiful life stat at 120. So all you really need to do is run one life rune, and you'll have really great life scaling. You won't need another one. If you have like a really good high scaling rune, like a 10, you just won't need to run more than one. But really great base life. This allows him to do so many things because his next stat, his speed stat, allows him to not move as much. So to have a nice base life, and to make up for the fact he's relatively slow, he has a base speed of 3,069. Ironically, like 369, 369. That's actually really 369. Catchy. 369. Yeah, threes. The power of threes. He has a speed of 3,069. So he's really slow. I feel like with the room build, like a life and 2 speeds, because you kind of wanted this guy to go possibly before your attacker in the case of the event either the attacker gets possessed. It really doesn't matter if Fatid gets possessed, because you realize here his trait is Mountain, even though it doesn't give him immunity to possession. If the enemy does possess him, there's a huge reason why you shouldn't, with the move we're going to talk about relatively soon. But just so you guys know, like, the speed stat really doesn't matter too much. It really doesn't. In terms of this monster, it doesn't. Because of the rune builds and how you probably build your other monsters around it, and just turn order, it really doesn't matter. Based on the builds, if you follow any of my build concept ideas, It really shouldn't matter too much. You should be able to run the match smoothly and do things. You'll do various things. It is in the Evil Legions and the Underworld book. Unfortunately enough, he will be having to he will be having to deal with Igursises. Igursis does live in the Evil Legions and Underworlds, I believe. I know he's in both. I don't even need to look at that. I wish Igursis was a good guy personally, but that's just like Dib like ML fan face right there. But like I wish Igursis was in good allegiance. But yeah, he's in both. So you will probably see. You're like if you fight in your Team War history, odds are someone will attack you using an Igursis because that's probably one of the best ways to approach fighting this thing. In all honesty. The relic slots are the staff and the trap relic. Personally, I hate this combination because they kind of contradict each other. With the trap relic, you really only ever run either the Taiga damage trap, which is really great if you got it, or the stamina draining trap. And as you guys know, staffs just kind of contradict each other because they both are home to either stamina draining or stamina recovery. And with staffs, it's like that or the other, you know? I don't really like it that much. They kind of counteract with each other. They basically, if you're running the energy recovery, it basically kills the point of running energy draining staffs, and I think that's huge. I think that's majorly huge. But I will say these are all right. They're all right, but I wish they were anything else, like anything more useful. I wish the relic slots were better. I just hate these for a tank specifically. Dude, this guy's also a tank, so he just doesn't get like the tanky privileges. He doesn't get tank privileged relics, and I think that's sad. But I don't think he also doesn't really need it because of you realize in his skills he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about damage in the slightest. If you're not using fire based skills on him, he just doesn't care. like if you're not using boosted fire damage, he'll just laugh it off. He's like, wait, was that damage? Are you trying to hurt me? Yeah, that's his reaction to you trying to hurt him. And he's got the face. He's got the perfect face. Just like to just look at you when you're doing damage, like trying to do damage to him. He's like the perfect one. Pestilence Curse. This is his ultimate here. It's a 40 base damage skill. Again, damage does not matter here, because all of his things is either instantaneous death or DOT, so he poisons everyone on the enemy team, and he also puts an insta-death counter on him. After 3 turns, everybody instantaneously dies. If the enemy is using a comp that doesn't clean debuffs and they don't kill you in 3 turns, they instantaneously die and you win the game. Things that have immunity to insta-death won't care about this insta-death too much. So like the Mives or the well, I don't think Alpha Clivius is immune to insta death, so that doesn't really work. But just things that are immune to insta death, which you won't ever see too much ever in terms of a defensive comp. Offensive, you might see a Demise or oddly enough an Ogma, but that's about it. I think this is a handful of monsters you might see that have immune to insta death, but that's really it. And he heals himself by 50%. So if he actually has a self buff that gives him an extra turn and heals, that gives him double healing, which is really great. Plus, you know, the regen he always gets with it, so he'll instantly heal 40% life after doing the skill, and you have a 50% heal that's currently doubled, so you'll get all your life back. If he does his extra turn skill and then do this, he gets all of his life back. Like if you're nearly killing him, and he gets his ultimate, and he does the extra turn skill first, you just win. Like he'll just like get a full life reset, and all that damage was for naught. He's got a pretty much a full life reset, not only in his base kit, but just like if he gets his ultimate, and he just does one of the extra turn skill. It's spontaneously stupid. It's really great. And keep in mind, again, this thing can you can get this thing up to rank 4, depending on how well your team does in the race. I just like to talk about Fart Machine because it's an awesome name. Fart Machine applies poison to all enemies. 0 stamina, 0 cooldowns, it's 0 damage. It just applies poison to everyone. It's an AoE, and it has a chance to apply poison. I think the skill's funny. Well, like just the name, like in terms of like it's just funny. Fart machine. Fart machine. Uh, I know this sounds like really like unprofessional at the moment, but I find this move really funny. Fart machine. Just poisons everyone. Zero stamina, zero cooldown. This might actually be really utilitative. It doesn't really do any initial damage. It just poisons everyone, but it doesn't really cost you anything. You can just spam it. You can. He's just a fart machine. I might maybe I might run this for memes, but I think it's funny. The event, like if you do actually seriously run the skill, and like if I do it anyway, though, it has to be a really good reason besides just because it's called fart machine. The benefit to running this skill really is even if your stamina drained or cooldown's activated, you will just straight up use this skill, and they're just currently poisoned and last for 4 turns. And then you lose up to 40% life. I just think this is a funny skill. That's like I just gave you guys like a competitive use for like a suggestion for it, but that's this is really just because it was called fart machine. uh, I think I'm gonna call mine fart machine. Hashtag fart machine train. Fart machine. uh, Trader eater. This is the okay. We're actually getting to the competitive skill now. Like a competitive skill here. We're getting serious now. Trader eater removes 100% positive status effects and 100% total life from one ally. Gives 100% stamina to itself and an extra turn to itself. So basically, what this does is it spontaneously kills like someone on your team. I don't know if this kills Fatid. If it does kill Fatid, it might not be the best move to run because if it's in a 1v, like in a 1v so-and-so situation, it would resort to just eating himself, which was weird. I don't know if he can actually eat himself. I don't think this is a skill he can use on himself. I hope that's how that works. If he can use it on himself, that'd be really dumb. I hope that's not how that works. Test it out. If it does, like if he can't use it on himself, by all means, feel free to run the skill. I will say this is a optional move if you so wish to take advantage of his revival skills right away. That's one of the benefits of running. The other benefit of running the skill is if they possess Fatid. This was the skill we were talking about like earlier. Even though like people would resort to possess this thing, odds are if they wind up possessing Fatid and you run like a specific tank, like a stall build for it, yeah, like run the 2 revival skills and like the self skill that gives you double healing and the regen that gives you extra turn, he will pretty much resort to eat someone. Odds are he will either eat someone if he's possessed or he'll just do the self buff. But basically, this lets you do things. He basically eats someone, and keep in mind he's getting an extra turn too. So he'll eat someone, get all of his stamina back, get an extra turn in, and odds are if he's already done the self skill, he still has a chance to do the revival skills too. But odds are he'll either do vine worms, which is a resurrection skill, or the vine worms, which is his other one, and he'll give double damage or triple damage depending on which one he does. Vine Worms is single target or single ally. Vine Worms Infestation is an AoE scaling. But just so you guys know, this is just to force proc his revives. Like that's all this really does is he eats someone and then he gives the ability to he pretty much gets the excuse of reviving everyone. It's basically just eating something and then reviving it, making it better. That's basically, he improves you by eating you and then spitting you out, and you just become insanely strong. That's basically the concept of this skill. And if you're possessed, it basically kills an enemy. This will kill an enemy. If he does get possessed, he basically eats an enemy. Because when you're possessed, now like I should probably explain how possession works real quick. Whenever anyone is possessed, whatever is currently possessed, if it's your monster that's possessed, it's counted as the opposing team's unit. It's no longer your unit, it is the enemy unit, and it's vice versa. If you possess an enemy monster, it's now your unit. It's treated as your monster. A lot of people wonder why I don't run Igursis with Vesavis. That's the reason. Because it's no longer treated as, since it's no longer treated as your unit, uh, the skill mirror whenever you like if the Igursis is currently possessed and the enemy does a skill on that Igursis, the mirror actually doesn't reflect it back at your enemy. It reflects it back at you because Igursis is currently the enemy unit, and when the enemy does a skill on Igursis, it repeats it back on your team. Not on the enemy team, but on your own team. Whatever the original Igursis team is, the mirror will put that, will pretty much repeat the same skill that just got hit by back on you. It doesn't reflect back on enemies. A lot of people get that mixed up. But that's how it actually works. That's how mirror or like the logic between possession works. It counts as the other opposing unit's team, if you know what have you. I know that was a lot of information. I kind of just put that in a mumble. Sorry about that, but that's kind of a clear situation on how possession works. And that's, you can use this offensively. That's how you use this skill offensively. This, I will say, in terms of an offensive presence, if he doesn't eat the opposing fatted, odds are the enemy will use fatted as well. So if he doesn't eat fatted right away, odds are the enemy possessor could just possess fatted again, and then he'll probably wind up reviving the thing he just ate. So this could be a double-edged sword if the enemy can possess you twice. If the enemy can possess you twice, that's a huge problem. It is astronomically huge. But however, if the enemy possesses you the first time and does the self buff, then he gets possessed again. That's a really stupid idea. Don't do that. Because what will happen is then he will wind up eating one of your monsters, and odds are it'd probably be the possessor or just yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a conflicting thing because like fatted counters pretty much fatted counters fatted. I'm kind of mumbling a lot too, and I don't really know why. But yeah, fatted counters fatted. Just so you know, usually just for the most part, you might just use this as your own self proc. So this can be used offensively given a certain situation, so RNG stuff. But you mainly use this for self procking. Putrid Organism heals itself by 40%, applies poison to all enemies, so it's a self-heal that poisons everyone. This is fantastic. Though it doesn't do any damage, you do get pretty much self-sustained. It's pretty much a self-sustained skill that also does something. A lot of the problem with like nature tanks is when they heal themselves, they don't really do anything else besides just maybe just damaging a single ally while the enemy while they do it. But this basically applies a DOT to everyone while also healing himself. I think this is a great stall skill. This is good for a stall set, especially with decomposing body. If you decomposing body into putrid organism, that's a full life reset. That's a full life reset. That's crazy. Like pretty much a full life reset instantaneously. Yeah, it is a full life reset. That's awesome. I love full life resets, especially built in the natural kit, and the cooldowns isn't too bad. They're not too bad. At most, they're like 3 cooldowns, but you have so much sustain in the meantime, and you can revive people. You just have so many things to use to keep up with. It's just a fantastic combo. So this is another optional move you may run. Rotten Claw, this applies poison and bleed to a single target while also doing 65 damage. It's his burstiest skill in terms of single target damage and just overall damage, really. I don't recommend running this. There's really no point to do so. It's just not a good idea. Because odds are the enemy's also running a fatted, and this would kind of make it real relevant because odds are, even if you burst down the an enemy unit that's not fatted, odds are fatted will just bring them back. And fatted can just heal off damage, so really DOTs doesn't really affect him at all. In all honesty, he just recovers so much spontaneously. It takes a lot of time before you can actually kill fatted. So it's kind of your thing, but I don't recommend this skill because it's not on an AOE scaling. He does have a skill, however, that is an AOE scaling, and that might be more so on your boat. Vine Worms, not Vile Worms. Vine Worms resurrects someone at 100%, giving them triple damage, and they die after 2 turns. The thing is, with insta-death, in terms of a time death counter, you can actually remove that. So if you, let's say you use the skill on like an Ukaduma, which would be weird. It would be a really weird thing to do. But let's say you bring back Ukaduma. Ukaduma can just clean himself, and he's actually at full strength again, and that's not actually bad, because then you could do Ukaduma things. You give everyone on your team precision and damage boost. You're just allowed to do things. You can do cleaning, what have you. But basically, if you run a monster that also cleans themselves when they do damage, like a Lalau, I think Lalau is a great example. Lalau has a lot of, like, 2 skills that clean herself. One of them's a really high base damage skill at 75, and at triple damage, you will kill something, like instantaneously. Even if you're not running double strength runes, your odds are you will kill it. And since it's cleaning itself, it's just a good thing to do. But this is basically the main reason why you're running Trade Eater. Kill your attacker, and then just give them triple damage. The thing is, though, in terms of resurrecting someone, it just seems to completely toss the turn order out the window, and it's just really weird. Like, no one really knows the specifics behind, like, when you revive someone. Does it, like, it just kind of wonks up the order. Like, you don't know if the person you just revived will get a turn in. With the enemy monsters will just now have turns over you. It's really complicated. No one really knows how it works. But if it goes in your favor, obviously, that's a win for you. If your attacker goes as soon as you revive them, that you pretty much win the game. It does a lot. Like, surviving that much damage is really hard to stomach, especially when you're running a really good runed attacker. I say give or take 6s. If you're running 2 level 6 strength runes on attacker, give or take, odds are you'll wipe the board. I don't know about level 5 strength rune, 2 level 5s, but I feel like 2 6s for sure at triple damage would do. Decomposing Body, this is his self skill. This lets you do so many things. It's a 4-turn cooldown, but realistically it's a 3-turn cooldown because you get an extra turn. Words. This is really, it combos with things. This double healing, a lot of monsters have had double healing either by applying it to their allies or just a self skill, but it never gave them an extra turn. This is the first time that it gives an extra turn. You get double healing, and you get 20% life regen. So basically, once you use the skill, you're getting 40% of your life instantaneously. And double healing is a universal thing. Any healing you receive, give it by the essences or just relics that heal on an AoE scaling. So basically essences. Any source of healing, you get double that. This is an amazing buff for tanks. And just anything that heals constantly. It's so good. You get so much healing out of it, so much sustain. If you're running a really good life rune, you'll just heal up damage. I recommend running this skill, especially if you're going for the revive set with Trader Eater, Vine Worms, and Vine Worm Infestation. I do believe if you're going for that route, if you're going for kind of a stally RNG moveset, that's the way to go. If you just want to take advantage of resurrections and you don't want to run the risk of DOTing your team if you get possessed, that's the best way to go, in all honesty. Infected Breath. This deals moderate nature damage to all enemies, applies poison and bleeding to all enemies. So the advantage of running this skill is an AoE base skill. It's 40 damage on a 2-turn cooldown. This is one of his most, besides the single target damage skill, obviously. This is on an AoE scaling, and it applies poison and bleed to everyone, and it's got really low stamina cost. This is a fantastic move. It's really great in terms of his category as a tank. He doesn't need to do solid damage to kill you. He'll kill you with time with this skill because you're taking 25 damage per turn. Bleeding lasts for 3 turns. The poison lasts for 4. Regardless, you'll be able to reapply this again because the cooldown's only 2 turns. That's astronomically amazing. It just lets you be able to spam this. They'll pretty much be poisoned and bleeding the whole game. This is basically if Fight Trier. You know the Animal Planet monster. Yeah, I can pull him up here. The thing that looks like a tree. This is basically Fight Trier's gig. You know, this is his like signature skill, and he just pretty much made it good because it actually does initial damage. The problem with Fracture's AoE that does the bleed and poison is it doesn't do any damage. This does do damage. However, it's not special based damage, so it won't do good initial damage to nature monsters. So pretty much Fatid, you won't do good against opposing Fatids in terms of just natural damage, but possibly the DOT can wear them down over time. If, let's say, you like cooldowns activation and they don't get ult, you can essentially wear down Fatid eventually, the opposing Fatid. So this is a good DOT skill. This is another option. I will say, in terms of must-haves, the must-haves are obviously the revival skills, but that's really it. I think it's based on player pref at that point, on what you want to do. But I would pick up both revivals. It's such a good support mechanism. Again, this is an AoE. The difference between the vine worms infestation, we're not talking about that, and vine worms now. The difference between this and this is an AoE scaling, but it only heals for 50% of your life. And it gives double damage instead of triple damage. Now again, it's totally up in the air. It totally depends on what goes down. But I think on the because since it's only like a one turn, you will die after one turn, I believe. Yeah, after one turn you will die. If your denier goes before, I mean, like if it's the first one that goes next, you will just straight up lose a coin. So try not to spontaneously kill your denier. It's not the best way to go about it. But unless they can clear, I will say unless they can clean. If they clean, by all means. If you're running a demise, I just realized this. If you're running a demise or something with an immune to insta-death as the denier, or the monster that goes first on your team, they don't really get bothered by this because they're immune to insta-death. This basically just means they're revived. Yeah, that's exactly how that goes, because you can't insta-death things that are immune to insta-death. So this basically, both these skills, the vine worms and the vine worm infestation, if it's immune to insta-death, they basically just get the benefits and none of the consequences. But obviously, if you have things that can clean, that's ideally what you want to pair this thing up with. So again, the must-have moves are vine worms infestation and the vine worms. Those are the two must-have skills. Everything else is up to you, and it's totally player preference. There's so many moves you could go with. You could go with putrid organism. You could go with decomposing body. Just a combination. Again, twos. You have two free skills. Whatever free skills you want. Like, do you want to run decomposing body? You want to run the true stall build. With this build, with the Trader Eater, decomposing body, and the two revival skills, you're not doing anything offensively. You're just stalling out. If you do get possessed, you will eat an enemy unit. If he does do this skill, he will eat an enemy ally. Well, not ally, but he'll eat an enemy is my point. Because it's treated as his ally, so he'll eat the enemy if he gets possessed. And he gets an extra turn out of it. Again, you're just kind of stalling. The whole point is just to make sure he picks up someone if they die. That's his main objective. He just wants to pick up friendly units. With this build in mind, that's all he really wants to do. He just wants to revive his allies should they fall in battle. In terms of a defensive sense, in terms of this build, I think it's a pretty solid defensive build. If we're talk about full defense sense here, this is straight up a great defense build. Really, your main objective in war is just to take coins. If the best comp to take an enemy coin, this can be either through stalling or just solid damage. With this, you're just you're hoping that the enemy is foolish enough to actually possess your boy Fatid, and he just eats someone. Hopefully, it's the enemy Fatid, so the enemy can't. They can't use their Fatid to bring, obviously Fatid can't bring himself back from the dead because he's dead, boy. or the enemy possessor. I will say it's really counterdictive if the enemy has a fatted and he just brings back the thing your fatted just ate. I will say that's pretty irrelevant. But yeah, that's just how that goes. Words. But yeah, that's how that build works in terms of what you're planning on doing with that defensive sense. I will say in terms of a more, if you're just gonna go offensive here, if you're just gonna use this for both, if you want to use this on the offense and the defense here, I think decomposing body, vine worms infestation, vine worms, and putrid organism is a pretty good for both situations. Even if he poisons his team, it doesn't really matter because he can just bring them back. It's like this has a obviously if you get possessed, you're just gonna poison. Like if he does the scale, you just poison your own team. It really doesn't matter because he can just bring them back. he just doesn't kind of really care. Because even if like he poisons himself and he just does decomposing bodies, he'll get 30. He'll get 30%. Even because you're getting double healing. Just pretty much you lose 10% of that 40% healing. I think that's fine. You're also keep in mind you also heal when you do this skill too. Again, you don't have to force kill. You don't have to use Traitor Eater to take advantage of your revives. If someone dies, just revive them. Ideally, you want to win as soon as you revive someone. That's ideally how you want to do it. It doesn't really do you good to have revive someone and they just die. But I think this build, like Putrid Organism and the two revives and decomposing body, is a good offensive sense. You don't really want to poison and bleed your entire team. Like poisoning isn't too huge of a consequence for your team. It's just more so the infected breath would be huge, more consequential. So I think this is another alternative to anti-possession. It really doesn't do you any good to possess fatted, like none. Another build you could go with his you could run fart machine for the just because it's fart machine. Fart machine. I guess you could say this is a funny build. You could run fart machine, putrid organism, decomposing. Well, not decomposing. That'd be actually bad. Don't do that. You want it like all time. You want both the revives. Just pick up both revives all time, for all builds. Fart machine and I guess decomposing body would. Yeah, never mind. At that point, I was just being silly. Fart machine, yeah, just fart machine. Fart machine. Fart machine. But yeah, I think those are the competitive builds. Like, if you're asking for me, you can either go Traitor Eater, 2 revives, decomposing body, or the alternative move would just be Putrid Organism. Like, it's either, in terms of a full-on competitive sense, you want both revives and decomposing body. And it's just your choice between Putrid Organism and Traitor Eater. In terms of a full-on, true competitive sense, you would run that. It's either Putrid Organism or Traitor Eater. Or if you want to be friendly, competitive, and like semi-competitive, and just you want to have some fun, you can run fart machine. You can run fart machine. I'm not gonna lie. This is probably my most favorite name skill in the game. I'm calling mine fart machine. I'm calling my monster fart machine. I fart machine. All right. Partners real quick. Let's talk about partners real quick, and maybe like counters, and then like runes. So how should I do this? Runes. We'll talk about runes first. So with runes, 1 life rune's obviously a must-have. You run 1 life rune. 2 speeds, I think 2 speeds is a decent build. It keeps him from being double turned. I don't think you want to be double turned when you're running fatted. So two speeds will let you do things, and you could run 1 speed. I guess 1 speed 2, 1 speed and 1 team speed and a life rune. Really, like the life rune's a must. So I guess alternatively, we're just talking about two sets at this point. So a speed and team speed, two speeds. If you want to go two team speeds, you run the risk of being double turned. If you don't really care about that, then just run the two team speeds. You can run him like Undertaker. This guy's basically the Nature's Undertaker. Despite only having one supportive skill, like Undertaker is considered one of the best supports in the game. Simply because of his trait and his just ability to bring someone back from the dead. And his ability to sponge damage. And this thing can sponge damage, bring people back from the dead. And he's immune to two of the most common controls in the game. He's also immune to advanced freeze, like Mega Freeze. Because when you have Mountain, you're immune to Mega Freeze. So you can pretty much run him like Undertaker if you wanted to. You can treat him as your Undertaker monster for nature. What else? There's no point to run damage with him. There's just none. Even though he's at 120, even though you can get this guy to 120, he does have a 4,656 attack damage. I don't think you need to do it. I don't think you need to. Your main objective here is just to annoy the piss out of the enemy team. Just stall. Stall for you to be able to revive people. Now, I will say, similar gameplay. This seems a lot like Oros gameplay. That's actually Falsa Mundo. You see, with Oros, he is an unreliable rock that only does self-buffs on himself and occasionally just tries to pub stomp your enemy team. This guy does things. He does more than just sit there and doing self-buffs to himself. He's able to AoE poison. He's able to bring people back alive. It's just reliable. It's more reliable than Oros. No, don't get those two mixed up. This don't. This monster is an actually good competitive monster. Don't look at Oros anymore. Words. So we talked about runes. Partners. Okay, partners real quick. What do I think would be really busted with this man? I think if you run something that gives immune to possession, I think that's ideal, because if you don't run, if you're not planning on going with Trader Eater, I think that's a must thing to do. So you don't bring back the enemy team. I will say that's pretty huge. If you do wind up resurrecting the enemy as a damage dealer, that's really problematic, like hugely. That is a huge problem if you do that. It's not a good idea in the slightest. So bringing something that gives immune to possession is relatively nice. It is pretty good. What else could you bring? Things that give stamina regen. I think that's thankful. If you wanted to, you could run a stamina rune, kind of do like a Cryotan build with a speed, stamina, and life. You could do that too. So maybe things that give stamina regen. There's a lot of water monsters and light monsters that do that. Quite a few monsters that give stamina regen nowadays, but you have your options with that. Things that allow more stalling, like Timuron. I think Timuron would work with Fatid easily. I think that's a great option. Like with Timuron, you should probably run Timuron with them. Because you can bring back Timuron if Timuron dies, and Timuron can do like stop times, cooldowns, activation, pretty much prevent the enemy Fatid from doing anything. I think that's pretty clutch. So he works with Timuron. Timuron kind of works with anyone anyway, but he works really well with him. Demise. I think Demise would work splendid with Fatid. For the let's say she winds up dying, Fatid can just bring her back unconditionally. Like, it really doesn't matter if the enemy kills Demise, because she can just bring Demise back. So I think that's pretty clutch. You could run, I think, a water damage dealer. Let's say it's a water war, water fire, like water fire nature war. You probably want something to counteract the fire damage dealer, so Fatid doesn't spontaneously roast like an onion. That's probably good. Counters real quick. Rank 5 Regursus with like a single 10 strength rune easily melts it. naturally, in terms of just natural damage, if an Agursis hits you with a 10 rune, with like Krakatoa or a T-Day, that's easily around 40k life, and if it's super effective, odds are you'll do like 50% or double the damage, so 80k, you'll probably melt Fatid. That's probably how that will go. So I think high damaging fire monsters will do the trick. You do want super effective damage in this fight. If you have Roxanne, I think Roxanne's also a great counter to Fatid. If you don't know what Roxanne does, Roxanne is a metal monster. He is able to do fire and metal damage. He doesn't have any special damage, but he doesn't really need any special damage because he has alternative damage. He'll, like, if you're a fire monster, he'll do metal damage to you. If you're a metal monster, he'll do fire damage to you. And he can really cover two elements. Roxanne's really good at covering like the magic and nature too, and so he's a great counter to Fatid. Excellent counter to Fatid. Excellent. So we talked about partners, we talked about runes. How about just an overall view? Overall, I think this monster is fantastic. He's gonna be just like Agursis. People will use this and probably use only this on defense comps for the most part. So anything lower than rank 4 for nature monsters probably won't ever be used. There's really no point. It's a shame too. I didn't really bring this up, but odds are not many people might use Talika anymore. This is the recent race monster, and if people are just using Fatid all the time, I don't know if people will really use. Maybe they will. I don't really know, but this is just my opinion. They might not use Talika. They might not. This is just like a competitive prediction here, but they might not. Because it's simply because it's really you really want to make sure this thing's under control. You don't want this thing to do whatever it wants. But I think that's I guess we just have to see. I'm not saying Talika's just like straight up bad. She's fantastic. But in terms of dealing with Fatid, like she specifically cannot deal with Fatid. You have to find someone else to deal with Fatid. If the enemy team isn't building stun resistance, like with the other two monsters, she can deal with them, but she cannot deal specifically with Fatid. Like Fatid just completely counters Talika in every sense and every level. Now I think she does remove negative effects, so maybe she can remove the insta-def. If it's a build that doesn't focus on DOT damage too much, like reapplying DOTs, odds are she might be able to just to stall out. But that's really it. She can't really straight up kill Fatid or deny him in any sense. If anything, all you can really do is apply the 40% shield. It'd be really hard to 1v1 Fatid with Talika, but yeah, this might affect the use of Talika and maybe Lord Mindsun and Psylotus, because you really don't want to run the risk of possessing this thing and he'll just go for Traitor Eater. You don't want that. It doesn't sound too good. Unless you had another Possessor on you. I will say if you have another Possessor on you, if you're running two Possessors, even if he eats one, you can just possess Fatid again with the other one and he'll just bring them back. But that means you have to win. Unconditionally, you have to win right away. You have to win that turn or that game. That's really risky too. That's extremely risky. At that point, it's just going to be a long game. But overall, fantastic monster. I feel like this is going to affect the meta, or at least like the nature category. I feel like a lot of people are just going to do the same thing they do with the Agursis and really lean in, simply because it's a rank 4 monster and it gets better stats. It's better than running rank 3s. It just has great sustain, great revival. It's basically an Undertaker. I feel like a lot of people just lean towards this. And this is a fantastic monster to lean on. He does everything. And he has a move called Fart Machine. So that's it for this video. Literally everything. Again, I'm gonna call my Fart Machine. Let me know what you're gonna call your Fatid if you do wind up getting him in the comments section below. I'm DibtheAwesome. I'll catch you guys later.